Right, this is part 3 of this Hacker RP18 restoration series. Last night I replaced 3 electrolytics on the AM board here with modern ones, and the 3 electrolytics I took out are here. They all showed on my capacitor checker that they were open circuit, and they were originally covered with a blue sleeve like this one, a blue plastic sleeve that you can remove, and I've done so, and I've put it on these 2 here just to make it look a little bit more original. Let's bring it up close to the camera. I've also restuffed that electrolytic there. There would have been originally a black rubber bung in the end here, and I've exposed a bit of heat shrink in the end here just to recreate that look. No one's going to really look inside this ever except me. But what we're going to do now, oh yeah, and there's one more I replaced as well. I don't know if you can see it. There's a blue electrolytic just on the switchboard PCB there, and I replaced that, and the radio really started to work then. I don't know what that one actually does, I'll have to check that out, but when you used to switch between medium wave and long wave, the radio used to thump a bit, you know, that boomf sort of noise, and I've replaced that one. It doesn't do that at all now. But what we're going to do is we're going to clean this upper plate now. I'll show you. This is where the scale would usually sit, obviously, and there's the scale, and it's held on by these 2 or metal clips either side, just a push fit on. Quite a tight push fit, I would guess, actually. Well, they were a tight push fit. I had to take them off. Right, so there's lots of dust around the switchboard, as you can see. There's lots of dust on this backing plate here, scale backing plate thing. The inputs, the various input sockets here, the aerial socket, and I can't remember what that one is now. That's the headphones socket. They all should be like a bright metal, and they're all covered in dust. So I'm going to clean all this lot up now, and we'll see how we get on here. So there's lots of fluff, especially around this recess and just here. So I'm just going to use a pair of tweezers and pull it all out at first, and then what I shall do then is I shall get some foaming cleaner and clean it up a little bit better than it is now. And I'm going to use a dentures brush for that, an ordinary paintbrush, and an ordinary toothbrush. And we'll see how we get on and see what it looks like. I'm going to have to be quite careful I don't get, because this is so matte, I don't want to get any oils or cleaners on this particularly, so I might even remove that in a minute. Right, so I'm going to get cleaning, and we'll see what it looks like in a minute. Right, after about 15 minutes work, this is the results. I've used foaming cleaner. Well, I first brushed off any loose sort of debris with a denture brush and a toothbrush to get in all the nooks and crannies and things. I then used foaming cleaner, and I've also actually very carefully used foaming cleaner on this painted panel here, very, very delicately, in case any of the paint rubbed off. And in fact, there was a thin film of 50-year-old dirt on here, and so this looks much brighter now. So after the initial clean, I then went round with this solution of petroleum jelly and white spirits. I think you call white spirits mineral spirits over in the US, if anyone from the US is watching this. So this is 1 to 20 parts, and what that enables you to do is just loosen off the old grease and you know, solid lumps of 50-year-old grease that are around any shafts and things. I also use it to lubricate. It's actually a recommend, if you read some of the old books written in the 30s, 40s, 50s and 60s, this is actually what they recommend to lubricate switching contacts and wire wound pots and things. So I use that pretty much on all my sets. It takes, the petroleum jelly takes a while to melt, but when it does, this is extremely useful. So it's a bit of cleaner, and I've cleaned off all the old grease. I actually had to pick some of it off with a scalpel blade on this pot here, but yeah, it's come up rather nicely. While I was doing the switch board here, I also made sure I lubricated inside the actual switch contacts with this paintbrush and the petroleum jelly solution, and I've also cleaned down in between the push buttons here, and I shall do so again when I put the switchboard back. The next thing to do is get a little bit heavier, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little cordless drill thing, although mine's actually got a cord, so it's a fully corded drill, with a wire brush, and just gently clean the corrosion off these switch sockets here. I'm also going to clean the shafts on the pots, because this one's gone green and that one doesn't look much better. What I've also done is I've gently sanded using like a lady's nail board sander the parts on the chassis here where the scale plate is going to sit. Unfortunately, when you take these off, sometimes on the latest Sovereign 2 they're actually stuck on, and when you pull them off, sometimes the paint lifts here, and you can just see it. If you look here, you can just see that line. Some of it's dirt and some of it's missing paint, but that'll be hidden by the metal strips. Unfortunately, because although I don't think these were stuck down, this has left little, or had left little specks of paint on here, so I've just got a light sanding board and just sanded this off so it's nice and smooth. I'm not sure it will make any difference, but yeah, anyway, so there we go, onwards and upwards. Next thing to do is get the switchboard back, and then I'm going to start with a wire drill, and I'm going to clean these. Right, here we are. I've got a bit of paper over this shaft here, so I don't touch this with the wire drill, and I also don't wreck the tuning cord which is there, because I wouldn't like to restring this. So that bit of paper goes up there, and I'm going to clean this brass shaft here with this wire drill. Let's get some of this corroded. Oh, it's really corroded as well. It's all bits of green verdigris type stuff all over it. Go. A little bit better. Right. While I'm here, I'm going to clean up this socket here, which is by far the worst one, that's showing some corrosion. A bit better. Who thought that watching someone do this would be videoed? Let's get the worst of it off. Let's run it up here, look. And then I'm going to do this shaft here as well. Let's clean that rust off if I can. It's actually rust, I think. Yeah, it's coming off. You can see where it's coming off on the paper. Well, I'm going to continue doing this and just tidying up various points on the chassis, because it's not really that interesting, is it? Right, I've finished cleaning up the top of the chassis. I use these nylon brushes here to get rid of any remaining dirt. There's another one here, a little cup there, and obviously they just and they don't leave any scratch marks at all, really. And then what I've done is I've used a little bit of metal polish on these plastic jack inputs here, and on the metal surrounds on this one in particular, and I've cleaned the shafts up here. And what I've used to buff the metal polish up is a felt pad on my drill. So that's all looking pretty shiny. So what we move on to next is the scale plate here. Now this is reasonably clean already. I haven't really dusted it, but what I'm going to do is just spray a little bit of window cleaner in the middle there, and I'm just going to give it a good wipe, and we'll see where we end up. Years of fingerprints and stuff on here, of course. Right, let's give it a little bit more that side. So there's nasty, well, not too deep scratch there. And there's years of ingrained dirt where these metal strips have sat, and the dirt's got right in the joint there, so that'll need a good old cleaning. And I don't know if you can see it, but where the knobs sit, particularly around the volume control, the knobs will sit like that, where people's fingernails, where they've turned the set on and off, people's fingernails scratch, so there's like a perfect circle, well, almost a full 360 degrees of scratches around each of the knobs. Not as visible as they usually are, perhaps it's the white scale plate. And I'll put a little bit of metal polish on here just to get this dirt off and to try and get some of the scratches out. If they're still showing badly, I've got some sanding pads that are used to clean aircraft canopies, so we'll use those. They're like 10,000 grit, so they'll you know, bring it up to a nice sheen. Right, I shall get on with that and then get back a little bit. I decided to try and buff all the scratches out of this scale plate here. It's quite noticeable if you turn it into the light. So I've given it a starter with try and get some of the ingrained dirt off with this, which is 3000 grit pad, sort of foam back pad, and then I've gone on to my sanding pads for cleaning aircraft canopies. There's this one which is double sided, I think that's about 5000 grit, and that's smoother, and then these very fine polishing stick here, which is probably about 10,000 grit or something, and that's probably about 8,000. So that's what I'm doing to that at the moment. You can see, hopefully I'm not that it's starting to make a difference. It won't get the worst of the scratches out. You'd have to take almost sand it back like 1/2 millimetre or something just to get a perfect finish on it. And there's one nasty scratch here, I don't know if you can see that, just above where the volume mark. You just see that. I won't get that out, not unless I'm really above, because that's quite relatively deep. It's not very deep, but relatively deep. But it's coming along anyway. So that's what I'm using, and I'm just basically just doing that in one direction. And you can see around here where I've taken some of the shine off, and I'll be buffing that back up to a gloss shine in a minute.